The Galactic Museum of Ancient Civilizations floated in space like a giant crystal. Ships from dozens of worlds came and went from its docking bays every day. Inside, visitors walked through halls filled with treasures from dead empires and lost races. Dae-hyun pressed his face against the transport window as his ship approached the museum. He had dreamed of this moment for years. As a human studying old alien weapons and armor, this place held more secrets than anywhere else in known space. "First time here?" asked the pilot, a friendly blue-skinned Altarian. "Yes," Dae-hyun replied, his eyes wide with wonder. "I still can't believe I got accepted for the research program." The pilot smiled. "Well, you picked a good time. They just put some new pieces in the Lost Warriors exhibit. Real mysterious stuff." After docking, Dae-hyun made his way through the museum's main entrance. The ceiling stretched up so high he couldn't see the top. Alien families walked past him, parents pointing out displays to their children. He heard at least 12 different languages being spoken around him. A tall, reptilian creature approached him. Its scales were dark green, and its eyes were bright yellow. "You must be the new human researcher," it said in perfect galactic standard. "I am Veltar, the chief curator. Welcome to our museum." Dae-hyun bowed politely. "Thank you for accepting my application. I'm very excited to study here." "Good. Good," Veltar said, leading him through the crowds. "Your species has such interesting perspectives on ancient warfare. We hope you will bring fresh ideas to our research." They walked past. Displays showing weapons that could cut through starship hulls and shields that could stop planet-killing bombs. Each piece had a small sign explaining where it came from and what it could do. Most of the civilizations that made these things were now gone. "Here we are," Veltar said, stopping in front of a large room. Above the entrance, glowing letters spelled out "Lost Warriors, Heroes of Dead Empires." Inside, Dae-hyun saw the most amazing collection of armor and weapons he had ever seen. There were battlesuits that could fly through space, swords that burned with eternal fire, and helmets that could read enemy thoughts. But in the center of the room, one piece drew his attention like a magnet. The armor stood alone on a raised platform. It was sleek and beautiful, made of some dark metal that seemed to shift colors in the light. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly blue. The helmet had a smooth faceplate that reflected everything around it like a perfect mirror. "Ah, you noticed our prize piece," Veltar said with pride. "This belonged to the Velthon Empire. They were the greatest warriors who ever lived, or so the stories say." Dae-hyun walked closer. The armor was tall, built for someone about his size. "What happened to them?" "Nobody knows," Veltar replied. "One day they controlled half the galaxy. The next day they were gone. No battles, no disasters, no messages. They just vanished. This armor is one of the few things they left behind. Has, anyone tried to wear it?" Veltar laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Oh yes, many have tried. Warriors from dozens of species have attempted to activate it. The armor has bio-neural interfaces that should connect with any living being's nervous system. But it never works. Nothing happens at all. A small insect-like creature scuttled over to them. It had 6 arms and compound eyes that sparkled like jewels. "This is Nix," Veltar said, "our expert on adaptive technologies." "The armor should work," Nix said in a high, buzzing voice. "I have studied it for 20 years. The technology is perfect. The neural pathways are intact, the power source still functions, but it refuses to activate for anyone." Dae-hyun stared at the armor. Something about it felt familiar, though he had never seen anything like it before. "What do your tests show?" "Standard readings, mostly," Nix replied. "But there are some strange energy patterns that our instruments can barely detect. Very faint, very unusual." "I brought some new scanning equipment from Earth," Dae-hyun said. "Human technology approaches things differently than most species. Maybe I could get different readings. Veltar's eyes lit up. Excellent! Fresh perspective is exactly what we need. You can start tomorrow. That evening, Dae-hyun met So-min, the human security chief at the museum. She was older than him, with short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Another researcher. Wanting to solve the armor mystery? She asked as they ate dinner in the museum's cafeteria. Is it that obvious? So-min smiled. Every new person who sees it gets the same look, like they think they're the one who will figure it out. I've been here 5 years, and I've seen dozens try. What do you think happened to the Velthon? Who knows? Maybe they evolved beyond needing bodies. Maybe they went to another galaxy. Maybe they're still here, watching us. She pointed her fork at him. But I'll tell you something strange. That armor only seems to react when humans are around. What do you mean? Just little things. The glow gets slightly brighter. The symbols pulse a bit faster. My security sensors pick up tiny energy spikes. Never happens with other species. Only humans. Dae-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. Have you reported this? Of course. But the changes are so small that most people think it's just sensor error. The official record says the armor shows no response to any species. Later that night, Dae-hyun lay in his guest quarters thinking about the armor. Something was calling to him, pulling at his mind. He had felt it the moment he saw the suit, a strange sense of recognition, like seeing a friend's face in a crowd. The next morning, he arrived early at the museum with his equipment. The Lost Warriors exhibit was empty at this hour, just him and the silent displays. He set up his scanners around the armor and began taking readings. His instruments immediately detected things that the standard museum equipment had missed. Energy patterns flowed through the armor like blood through veins. The neural interfaces weren't dead. They were waiting. Fascinating, he whispered to himself, adjusting his sensors for deeper scans. The armor seemed to pulse gently, its blue glow growing just a little brighter. The symbols on its surface shifted and moved like living things. Dae-hyun's equipment registered massive energy spikes that should have been impossible. He stepped closer, holding his scanner up to get better readings. The armor's glow grew stronger, and he could swear he heard something. A sound like distant singing, like voices calling from far away. Without thinking, he reached out toward the armor's chest plate. The metal looked so smooth, so perfect. Just one touch, he thought. Just to see what it felt like. His fingertips brushed against the dark surface. The world exploded in light. The alarm screamed through the museum halls like an angry beast. Emergency lights flashed red and white, turning the peaceful exhibits into a scene from a nightmare. Security teams ran through corridors while visitors pressed against the walls, confused and frightened. So-min sprinted toward the Lost Warriors exhibit, her boots echoing on the metal floors. Her comm device crackled with reports from her security team. Energy surge detected in Section 7, came a voice. Massive power spike unlike anything we've recorded. Seal the area, So-min commanded, running faster. Nobody gets in or out until I assess the situation. When she reached the exhibit, she stopped dead in her tracks. The armor that had sat silent for centuries now blazed with brilliant light. Blue energy flowed across its surface like liquid lightning. Holographic displays filled the air around, it showing star maps and strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. On the floor beside the platform lay Dae-hyun, unconscious but breathing. His scanner equipment was scattered around him, some pieces still smoking from power overloads. Medical team to Section 7 immediately, So-min called into her comm. She knelt beside Dae-hyun and checked his pulse. Strong and steady, but his skin felt strangely warm. The armor continued its light show, projecting images that seemed to move and shift like living things. The symbols on its surface raced around in patterns that almost made sense, like a language just beyond understanding. Jin Woo, the museum director, arrived with a team of researchers and security guards. He was a middle-aged human with gray hair and worried eyes. What happened here? The human researcher made contact with the armor, So-Min reported. The moment he touched it, this started. Jin Woo stared at the blazing armor in amazement. In 600 years of operation, we've never seen anything like this. The energy readings are off all our charts. Nix scuttled over to them, all 6 arms waving excitedly. The bio-neural pathways are fully active. The armor's consciousness matrix is running at maximum capacity. This is incredible. Consciousness matrix? So-Min asked. All advanced armor has some form of artificial intelligence, Nix explained. But this system is far beyond anything we've seen. It's almost like the armor is alive. Veltar approached carefully, his yellow eyes fixed on the dancing lights. The Valthon texts spoke of their armor as if it were a living partner, not just equipment. We always thought it was just poetry. Dae-hyun groaned and opened his eyes. For a moment, they glowed with the same blue light as the armor. Then he blinked, and they returned to normal. What happened? He asked, trying to sit up. So-Min helped him to his feet. You touched the armor, and it exploded into this light show. How do you feel? Strange, Dae-hyun said honestly. He looked at the armor, and the light pulsed brighter. I can hear it. Hear what? Jin-Woo asked. Voices, like an entire army singing together but very far away. Dae-hyun stepped closer to the armor, and the holographic displays shifted to face him. It's trying to tell me something. Don't get too close, So-Min warned, but Dae-hyun was already reaching toward the armor again. This time, when his hand touched the metal, the explosion of light was gentler. Images filled his mind, vast fleets of ships, battles among the stars, and warriors in armor just like this one. He saw worlds burning and others being saved. He saw the faces of the Valthon, tall and proud and brave. They're coming back, he whispered. Who's coming back? Jin-Woo asked urgently. Before Dae-hyun could answer, new alarms began sounding throughout the museum. This time it wasn't the emergency system. It was the approach warning for incoming ships. So-Min activated her command console. Control, what's the situation? Multiple vessels dropping out of hyperspace, came the reply. Hegemony military ships, collector vessels, and several unidentified craft. They're all requesting immediate docking permission. Jin-Woo cursed under his breath. News travels fast in space. Every major power in the galaxy will want to know about this. The armor's light show suddenly changed. The holographic star maps zoomed in on specific systems, highlighting planets in pulsing red. The symbols on the armor's surface rearranged themselves into what looked like warning signs. It's showing us something, Dae-hyun said, studying the displays. These systems, they're all on the edge of known space. Nix examined the projections with expert eyes. These are monitoring station locations, very old ones from before any of our current civilizations reached space. Monitoring what? So-Min asked. The armor responded by projecting a new image, a dark cloud spreading between the stars, consuming everything in its path. The cloud had shapes moving inside it, things that looked hungry and evil. The void swarm, Veltar breathed, his scales turning pale. It's just a legend, a story the Valthon told about monsters from dark space. It's not a legend, Dae-hyun said, his voice distant and strange. They fought them for 1,000 years. They built weapons and defenses to hold them back. But it wasn't enough. How do you know this? Jin-Woo demanded. The armor is showing me. The Valthon didn't just disappear. They transformed themselves into something else to continue the fight. But they left their equipment behind for those who would come after. Heavy footsteps echoed through the exhibit as hegemony soldiers entered, followed by a tall alien in military uniform. The newcomer had blue-gray skin and 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. I am Admiral Kex Thul of the Hegemony Fleet, the alien announced. By galactic law, any weapon of mass destruction falls under military jurisdiction. This armor will be transferred to our research facility immediately. This is a museum, Jinwoo protested. We have legal protection under cultural preservation. Treaties. Those treaties don't cover active military assets, Kexthul replied coldly. And this armor is clearly active now. The armor's light pulsed angrily, and several of the holographic displays changed to show defensive positions and weapon specifications. The soldiers stepped back nervously. It doesn't like you very much, So Min observed. The armor will only respond to humans, Nix said excitedly. We've confirmed it. No other species can activate its systems. Kexthul's 4 eyes narrowed. Impossible. Human technology is primitive compared to this. It's not human technology, Dae-hyun said, still staring at the projections. But it was made for humans. The Vilethon knew we were coming. More visitors arrived. Representatives from the collectors, scientists from various research institutes, and diplomats from a dozen worlds. All wanted to examine the armor, and all left disappointed when it refused to respond to anyone except humans. Haewon, the human diplomatic representative on the station, pushed through the crowd. She was a small woman with sharp intelligence in her dark eyes. This is getting out of hand, she said to Jinwoo. Every major power in the galaxy is sending ships here. If we're not careful, this museum is going to become a battlefield. The armor is trying to warn us about something, Dae-hyun said urgently. These monitoring stations it's showing us. They're detecting movement in dark space. Something big is coming. The holographic displays suddenly changed again, showing a countdown in symbols that hurt to look at. The numbers were decreasing rapidly. How long do we have? So Min asked. Dae-hyun studied the countdown, somehow understanding its meaning. 6 months, maybe less. Until what? He turned to face them all, and for a moment his eyes glowed blue again. Until they arrive. The Void Swarm is coming back, and this time there are no Vilethon left to stop them. The armor pulsed brighter, as if agreeing with his words. In the silence that followed, everyone could hear it, a sound like distant singing, like voices, calling across the void of space. The real war was about to begin. The emergency council chamber buzzed with tension, as representatives from dozens of worlds argued over what to do about the armor. The circular room was designed to promote peaceful discussion, but today it felt more like a war zone. Admiral Kexthul slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. The hegemony has protected this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have the resources and experience to handle this threat. Your experience means nothing against something you've never faced, replied Morden of the Collectors. The ancient being looked like a walking skeleton covered in flowing robes. My people have studied extinct civilizations longer than your species has existed. This armor belongs in our archives. It belongs with those who can use it, Haewon said firmly. And so far, that's only humans. In the museum's research facility, Dae-hyun sat connected to the armor through dozens of sensors and neural interfaces. Nara, a human psychic researcher, monitored his brain activity as he experienced more visions from the ancient suit. The images are getting clearer, Dae-hyun said, his eyes closed in concentration. I can see their battles now. The Vilethon fought the Void Swarm for centuries. Tell me what you see, Nara said gently, her own psychic abilities helping her guide his experience. Ships the size of moons, covered in darkness that eats light itself. Inside the darkness are things that used to be alive, but now they're just hungry. They consume entire star systems, turning everything into more of themselves. The armor projected new images around them. Massive battles in space with fleets of gleaming ships fighting against writhing shadows. The Vilethon warriors moved, like dancers, their armor enhancing their every motion. The armor isn't just protection, Dae-hyun continued. It's a link. All the warriors were connected, sharing thoughts and reactions instantly. They fought as one mind in many bodies. How did they finally win? Nara asked. They didn't win. They just held the line until they could find another way. Daehyun's voice grew sad. They sacrificed their physical forms to become something else. Guardians without bodies, watching from beyond space and time. In the council chamber, the arguments were getting louder. Tae-jin, a human military advisor, tried to bring order to the chaos. Fighting over the armor won't help anyone, he said. We need to focus on the real threat. If this void swarm is really coming back, we need to prepare. You're talking about legends and ghost stories, Kexthul scoffed. There's no proof this void swarm ever existed. Veltar clicked his claws nervously. Actually, there is. I've been researching Vilthon historical records. They mention the swarm in dozens of texts, always as their greatest enemy. Old stories, dismissed a Saurian diplomat. Every warrior culture has tales of ultimate enemies they supposedly defeated. The debate was interrupted when Somin entered the chamber, her face grim. We're getting reports from the edge of the galaxy. 3 monitoring stations have gone dark in the past hour. The room fell silent. These were automated stations that had operated without fail for thousands of years. Equipment failure? Someone suggested hopefully. All 3 at once? Somin shook her head. And they're all in systems the armor highlighted as danger zones. Back in the research facility, Daehyun suddenly gasped and opened his eyes. The armor's glow had changed from blue to red, and warning symbols flashed across its surface. It's starting, he said urgently. The advanced scouts are already here. Nara helped him disconnect from the neural interfaces. What can we do? The armor wants to show us something else, something important. Daehyun approached the suit again, but this time he didn't just touch it, he began putting it on. Wait! Nara called. We don't know what will happen if you actually wear it. But Daehyun was already sliding his arms into the sleeves. The moment the armor made full contact with his body, everything changed. Light exploded through the room as the suit came fully online. But this wasn't the gentle glow from before. This was raw power that made the air itself sing with energy. Daehyun's consciousness expanded beyond his body, connecting to systems across the galaxy. He could see through sensors on distant worlds, feel the pulse of hyperspace routes, hear the whispers of artificial intelligences in far-off computer networks. And underneath it all, he sensed something else. Other consciousnesses, ancient and vast, watching from the spaces between stars. Welcome, young guardian, came a voice that spoke directly to his mind. We have waited so long for your people, to be ready. Who are you? Daehyun asked without speaking aloud. We are what the Velthon became when flesh could no longer serve our purpose. We are the Watchers, the Guardians, the shield between life and the hungry dark. Images flowed through Daehyun's mind faster than thought. He saw the truth behind the legends. The Void Swarm wasn't just another alien race. It was something from outside normal space-time, a force of pure consumption that ate reality itself. Why humans? He asked. Why are we the only ones who can use this armor? Your species has something unique, the voice replied. Other races fight for territory, resources, survival, but humans fight hardest when protecting others. You become stronger when you have more to lose, not weaker. I don't understand. You will. The armor will teach you. But first you must understand what you're accepting. To wear this suit is to become part of something larger. You will share the burden that the Velthon carried for millennia. In the council chamber, alarms began, sounding throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts crackled over the comm systems. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected at the galactic rim, came an urgent voice. Unknown vessels are entering our reality. They're not using any known FTL technology. The delegates stared at each other in growing fear. Whatever was coming, it was already here. Kexthul activated his military comm unit. Admiral to Hegemony Command, we need the full battle fleet here immediately. It won't be enough, Haywan said quietly. If the armor's visions are accurate, conventional weapons can't hurt these things. Back in the research facility, Dae-hyun was experiencing the full scope of the Valthon legacy. The armor showed him hidden facilities across the galaxy. Weapons, caches, shield generators, and defense networks that had waited dormant for thousands of years. There are others, the ancient voice told him. 11 more suits like this one, scattered across space and time, each one waiting for a human worthy to wear it. 11 more people like me, not like you, better than you in their own ways. An engineer who builds impossible things, a strategist who sees patterns others miss, a pilot who can fly through hell itself. The armor calls to those who can serve the greater good. Dae-hyun felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders like a mountain. What if we're not ready? What if we fail? Then the galaxy dies, and the void swarm spreads to other realities. But we don't believe you will fail. Your species has something no other race possesses, the ability to become more than yourselves when others need protection. The armor's systems fully integrated with Dae-hyun's nervous system, and suddenly he could feel every human in the galaxy. Not their thoughts or emotions, but their potential. Their capacity for sacrifice, for heroism, for standing up when everything seemed hopeless. Find the others, the voice urged. The armor will guide you to them. But hurry. The swarm's main force will arrive soon, and when it does, the real war begins. Dae-hyun opened his eyes, and they now glowed with permanent blue light. The armor had become part of him, and he had become part of something far greater than any single person. Nara, he said, his voice carrying new harmonics that seemed to come from everywhere at once. We need to contact every human colony and ship in the galaxy. It's time to find the other guardians. Outside the museum, in the cold depths of space, reality began to tear. Dark shapes moved between the stars, and the hungry void prepared to feed once more. The transport ship, New Soul, shook as it dropped out of hyperspace near the Kepler colony. In the cargo hold, a sealed container hummed with blue energy, calling to someone on the distant mining world below. Minho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished repairing another broken atmospheric processor. The colony was always breaking down, and as the chief engineer, he spent most of his time keeping 8,000 people alive on a world that didn't want them there. Minho, we've got visitors, came a voice over his comm. Some kind of research. Team from the Galactic Museum. They want to see you specifically. Minho frowned. Why would anyone from the museum want to talk to a colony engineer? Send them to Workshop 7. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When he arrived, he found 3 people waiting for him. One was a woman in a military uniform. Another was a young man whose eyes glowed with an eerie blue light. And the third was someone in the most amazing suit of armor he had ever seen. I'm Yu-jin, said the woman. This is Dae-hyun, and this armor. Well, it has something to show you. The armored figure stepped forward, and Minho felt a strange tingling in his mind. Images flashed before his eyes, blueprints for machines beyond imagination, power sources that could run forever, and most importantly, a second suit of armor that looked just like the one in front of him. You're an engineer, Dae-hyun said, his voice echoing strangely inside his helmet. But not just any engineer. You build things that shouldn't be possible. You see solutions where others see only problems. Minho staggered backward. What's happening to me? The armor is calling to you, Yu-jin explained. You're one of the chosen 12, humans who can wear the ancient Valthon armor and help defend the galaxy. That's crazy, Minho said. But even as he spoke, he felt drawn to the container they had brought. Something inside it was singing to him, promising knowledge and power beyond his wildest dreams. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds. On the farming planet of New Busan, Jae-sung looked up from his Research on crop mutations to find visitors with glowing eyes and impossible stories. In the asteroid belt, pilot Yun-ji received a message that changed everything she thought she knew about the universe. Back at the museum, the situation was growing desperate. More monitoring stations went dark every hour, and reports of strange sightings came from the outer rim. Dark shapes moving between stars, space itself seeming to bend and twist around them. In the command center that had been hastily set up in the museum's main hall, holographic displays showed the spread of whatever was coming. Red zones marked areas where contact had been lost, and the pattern was clear. Something was moving inward toward the galaxy's heart. "We've lost contact with the entire outer spiral arm," reported Kyung-ho, a colony coordinator who had arrived with a refugee fleet. 17 worlds just gone. No distress signals, no escape pods, nothing. Admiral Kexathul studied the tactical displays with growing unease. His fleet was the strongest military force in known space, but every instinct told him it wouldn't be enough. "What exactly are we facing?" "The Void Swarm," came a new voice from the armor that Dae-hyun wore. But this time, it wasn't Dae-hyun speaking. The voice was older, ancient, and carried the weight of eons. "I am Sulvek, last consciousness of the Velthon Empire." The room fell silent. Every being present, human, alien, and artificial intelligence, focused on the armored figure. "You're a ghost," Kexthul said accusingly. "I am what remains when flesh becomes insufficient for the task at hand," Sulvek replied through Dae-hyun's body. "My people faced a choice: die as individuals or live as guardians. We chose service." "What is this void swarm exactly?" asked Hae-won. The armor projected new images, not the battle scenes from before, but something much worse. Dark spaces between realities where things that had never been alive hungered for everything that was. The swarm wasn't just another alien species. It was entropy given form, the desire to reduce all complexity to nothing. "They come from the spaces between dimensions," Sulvek explained. "Reality is like a bubble floating in an ocean of void. Sometimes things from that ocean find ways to break through." "How do we fight something like that?" Yujin asked. "With sacrifice, with unity, with the willingness to become more than yourself." The ancient consciousness paused. "Your species has something unique. You fight hardest when protecting others. This is why the armor chooses humans." Yunji arrived from the asteroid mining station, her ship barely holding together after pushing its engines beyond their limits. She was a small woman with pilot's reflexes and eyes that had seen too much of space's dangers. "I came as soon as I got the message," she said, looking around at the assembled humans. "Something's been following me for the past 3 days. Shadows that move faster than light, whispers in empty space." "The scouts," Sulvek confirmed. "They're testing our defenses, learning our weaknesses. The main force won't be far behind." More chosen humans arrived throughout the day. There was Dong Min, a test pilot who had broken every speed record in human space. Min Kyung, a medic who had saved more lives than she could count. Su Jin, a communications expert who could make any system work. Each time one of them came near the armor, it reacted. Blue light flowed between Dae-hyun and the newcomers, creating connections that went deeper than words or thoughts. They began to understand each other in ways that normal humans never could. 11 more suits are hidden across the galaxy, Sulvek explained to the gathering. Ancient Vilthon technology, waiting for the right moment to awaken. But finding them won't be easy. They're hidden in places that normal beings cannot reach. "What kind of places?" asked Jae-sung, the researcher, who had arrived from New Busan. "The heart of a star, the event horizon of a black hole, the space between atoms in a neutron star's core." The ancient consciousness sounded almost apologetic. The Velthon hid them well, knowing that only beings of extraordinary capability would be able to retrieve them. "That's impossible," protested. Kexthul. No technology can survive in such environments. Human technology cannot, Sulvek agreed. But armor like this transcends normal physical laws. It exists partially outside normal space-time, drawing power from dimensions beyond your current understanding. The chosen humans looked at each other with growing understanding. They were being asked to do more than just fight. They were being asked to become something beyond human limitations. "What happens to us?" asked Minho quietly. "If we wear these suits, do we stay human?" "You become more human," Sulvek replied. "The armor doesn't change what you are. It amplifies what you already are. Your capacity for sacrifice, for protection, for love that extends beyond yourself." Alarms suddenly filled the command center. The main display screen showed a new image. The galactic core, where ancient monitoring stations had detected something vast, moving through hyperspace. "Main force detected," came an automated voice. "Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Scale assessment beyond current measurement parameters." Everyone stared at the display in growing horror. Whatever was coming was larger than entire solar systems. 72 hours to find 11 more suits and 11 more guardians, Yujin said grimly. "Can it be done?" Sulvek's ancient consciousness touched each of the chosen humans' minds briefly, assessing their capabilities and determination. "It must be done. The alternative is the end of everything you have ever known or loved." Daehyun stepped forward, the armor's blue glow intensifying. "Then we start now. The armor can guide us to the hidden suits, but we'll need ships, resources, and most importantly, people willing to risk everything." "You have them," said a new voice. Everyone turned to see more humans entering the command center, colony administrators, ship captains, scientists, and soldiers. Word was spreading through human space, and people were coming to help however they could. "We may not be chosen," said one of the ship captains, an older woman with gray hair and determined eyes. "But we can fly you where you need to go. And we can buy you time," added a young soldier. "If these things need to be slowed down while you find the other suits." Sulvek's presence seemed to fill the entire room with warmth. "This is why we chose your species. In the face of ultimate darkness, you do not despair. You come together." The race against time had begun, and the fate of everything hung in the balance. The rescue of the 11 hidden armor suits became legend, even as it happened. Yunji flew her ship into the corona of a star, her hull glowing white-hot as she retrieved the first suit from impossible depths. Minho used an entire colony's power, grid, to create a gravity well that let him reach into a black hole's edge for the second. Each retrieval was a miracle of engineering, courage, and the strange protection that the awakened armor provided. The chosen humans worked beyond normal limitations, their bodies and minds enhanced by their connection to the ancient Velthon technology. As each new suit was found, another guardian stepped forward. Su-Jin, who had kept a dying space station's communications running for 3 days straight. Dong-min, who flew rescue missions into areas where normal pilots would die instantly. 12 humans in total, each carrying the hopes of an entire galaxy. The Void Swarm's approach created panic across known space. Entire star systems evacuated as the darkness spread, reality itself seeming to bend and twist around the invaders. Normal weapons passed through them without effect, and conventional shields collapsed at their touch. But the 12 Guardians had something different. As they put on their armor, they connected not just to the ancient Velthon technology, but to each other. Their minds linked across impossible distances, creating a network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. "I can feel all of you," whispered Min Kyung as her armor activated. She was a medic who had volunteered to wear the suit hidden in a neutron star's core. "Your thoughts, your determination, we're not alone anymore. None of us are alone. replied Dae-hyun from his position at the galactic rim, where the first Void Swarm ships had begun to appear. We're part of something greater now. The battle began at the edge of known space. The 12 Guardians spread out across multiple star systems, each one activating ancient Vilethon defense networks that had slept for millennia. Massive shield generators came online, creating barriers of pure energy that stretched between stars. But the Void Swarm was vast beyond imagination. Ships the size of moons moved through space like living shadows, consuming planets and turning their matter into more of themselves. Behind them came something even worse, holes in reality itself, gaps where the hungry void pressed against the bubble of normal space-time. "The barriers are holding," reported Yu-jin from the command center she had established on the museum station. "But barely. The swarm is testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses." "Let them test," said Sulvek, through all 12 armored guardians at once. "They do not understand what they face. The Velthon chose your species not for your technology or your numbers, but for your hearts." The real test came when the swarm's main force arrived. Reality tore open like fabric, and things that should not exist poured through. The darkness was alive with hunger, reaching out with tendrils that consumed light itself. The 12 Guardians stood firm. Their armor blazed with blue fire as they channeled power through the ancient defense networks. But more importantly, they channeled something else. The combined will of every human in the galaxy. Across human space, on colonies and ships and stations, people felt the connection. They couldn't wear the armor themselves, but they could contribute their strength, their hope, their desperate love for everything they were trying to protect. A mother holding her child on New Sol felt her determination flow through the network, to Minho as he held a defense line against impossible odds. An old man tending his garden on Earth somehow strengthened Jae-sung's resolve as reality twisted around him. The love of millions became a weapon more powerful than any star destroyer. This is what the Vilethon never had, Sulvek realized, his ancient consciousness expanding to encompass the growing network. They fought alone, each warrior isolated in their own armor. But humans share everything. The battle raged across multiple dimensions. The Guardians fought not just in normal space, but in the twisted realms between realities where the Void Swarm made its home. They pursued the darkness into places where physics broke down and only will mattered. Dongmin flew his armored form through the heart of a collapsing star, using its death throes to power a weapon that could hurt beings of pure void. Sujin rewrote the laws of communication itself, turning the swarm's own hunger against it by making them hear the voices of every life they had consumed. The tide began to turn when the 12 Guardians made their greatest discovery. The Void Swarm wasn't truly evil. It was just hungry, and it had been hungry for so long that it had forgotten any other way to exist. It consumed because consumption was all it knew. "We don't have to destroy them," Yoonji realized as she danced, between dimensions in her armor. "We have to teach them." "Teach them what?" asked Min Kyung, even as she used her medical knowledge to heal tears in space-time itself. How to create instead of consume. How to build instead of break. How to love instead of hunger. It was the most dangerous thing any of them had ever attempted. Instead of fighting the Void Swarm, the 12 Guardians opened their minds completely, sharing not just their own experiences, but the experiences of every human connected to their network. The darkness recoiled at first, unable to understand what it was feeling. But slowly, grain by grain, the swarm began to change. The hunger that had driven it for eons started to transform into something else. Curiosity, wonder, and finally, the desire to protect rather than consume. "Impossible," whispered the collective, consciousness of the swarm as it experienced love for the first time. We remember now. Before the hunger, before the void, we were something else. The transformation spread through the swarm like light through shadow. Where there had been consuming darkness, now there were beings of pure energy who wanted to create and nurture instead of destroy. The holes in reality began to heal as the swarm learned to build instead of break. Sulvek's ancient presence filled the network with something like joy. This is why we waited. This is why we chose humanity. Any species can fight. Only humans could teach our enemies to love. The war ended not with destruction, but with transformation. The Void Swarm became the Void Gardeners, using their power to heal the damage they had caused and create new wonders throughout the galaxy. The 12 Guardians found themselves not just protectors, but teachers, showing countless species how to connect across the barriers that separated them. Years later, Dae-hyun stood in the museum where it all began, now expanded into a center of learning that welcomed beings from across the galaxy and beyond. The armor had become part of him, so completely that he barely remembered what it felt like to be alone in his own mind. "Do you ever regret it?" asked So-min, who had become the director of Galactic Security. "Giving up your individual humanity to become something larger?" Dae-hyun smiled, his blue glowing eyes reflecting the light from displays showing wonders that had been created by the cooperation between former enemies. Through the network, he could feel his 11 fellow Guardians across the galaxy, and through them, the warm presence of billions of humans who had chosen to be part of something greater than themselves. "I didn't give up my humanity," he said. "I finally found it. We all did." In the depths of space, ancient monitoring stations that had once watched for threats now broadcast songs of welcome to visitors from other realities. The galaxy had become not just a place of life, but a beacon of hope that showed even the darkest hunger could be transformed by love. The Vialthon had finally found worthy successors, and the universe was better for it. The armor still glowed with blue light, but now it was the glow of connection rather than war. The 12 Guardians had become something new, not conquerors or destroyers, but gardeners of possibility, tending a galaxy where any dream could grow if nurtured with enough care. Humanity had found its place among the stars not through conquest, but through the simple act of sharing their greatest gift, the ability to see potential for good in even the darkest places, and the courage to act on that vision no matter the cost. The shield-bearers stood ready, not for war, but for whatever wonders tomorrow might bring.